All started the day before, way back in those hills, when the Crow scouts spotted the Indian village over here. All they could see were the horses on the opposite slope and some campfires. So Custer decided to march his men all night, and his plan was to get here and rest them the day before the battle and then charge in the morning. But in the morning he thought they were spotted, so he lost the element of surprise, so he decided to go right into battle. So over here, way back there, he sent Benteen with about 200 men around to the south to see what was happening down there. And up here, behind this hill, he sent Reno with about 200 and some men and scouts to cross over the little Bighorn over here. He forded the river, came marching down this valley, and in this valley is where the Indian camp was. The Sioux were down at this end, the Cheyenne at the other end. So they came marching down here and got right about to this spot. They're charging, and for whatever reason, Reno called for them to halt, and he set up skirmish lines along the valley there as the Indians came running out to meet them. And eventually Reno moved his men over into these trees here. And he fought from the trees for a while. Meanwhile, there were lots of accounts about Reno drinking, kept pulling out his flask and taking guzzles. So he's half in the bag. And then when the scout Bloody Knife got shot in the head right next to Reno, his brains and bloods got splattered all over Reno. Reno panicked, called a retreat. And it wasn't even an orderly retreat with no defense in the back. They just took off. They just ran, every man for themselves, back across the river, through that ravine, and came running up this hill and took a defensive position along this hill, starting about there. It's kind of a bowl shape. It's kind of indented in the middle, so they could defend it on the edges. And they put the wounded in here. So they lost a lot of men coming up this way. And right about the time they got up here is when Benteen finally arrived with his guys. So Reno was drunk and unable to make decisions. So Benteen pretty much took charge. And Captain Weir wanted to go after Custer, because Custer had taken off with 200 men up that direction. And Weir was actually liked Custer, whereas Benteen and Reno did not. And so Weir asked Reno if he could go after Custer. Reno didn't make a decision. Benteen said no, but Weir took off anyway with a handful of guys. So Reno and Benteen said, well, we better follow him up. So on the other side of this hill here is Weir's point. So Weir got up to that far, and Benteen and Reno followed him up to that point with their command. And way in the distance, about 3 more miles or 4, they could hear a volley fire and a lot of dust. So they knew Custer was in battle, but there were too many Indians in between. So then they decided to go back to this point and defend this area. And here's where they sat for the next couple of days, getting picked off with Indians from the higher ground way off in the distance. And looking west. And up the hill. Over here, now there's a Weir point. They could see smoke and hear gunfire, but they saw a lot of Indians. They were under heavy attack. So they decided it was better off going back to Reno Hill. It's more defensible. So they retreated back to Reno Hill, where they hunkered down for about the next 2 days. But where was Custer? Medicine Tail Coulee up there. And did he divide his force again? Did Custer divide his force again? And send some of them through that ravine to the river, the villages, while Custer went this way. Fast pan, fast pan. We're in deep ravine. Crazy Horse and the other Indians came up from Little Bighorn back there into this ravine. Used this cover to sneak up on the Indians. Well, I just ran up from deep ravine and I didn't have a horse. Here's all the markers where the bodies were found of the cavalry, mostly unnamed soldiers. The question is, were they running from Last Stand Hill or making an attack, or just bolting to the river, or did Custer send them down from the other side of Deep Ravine there to attack while he continued on north? Okay, up here by Last Stand Hill, it gets a little sketchy what really happened. Custer came up this way and either made a charge down the hill here, or he sent about 75 men down the hill, down the deep ravine, while he continued up around the hill. And here eventually is where Last Stand Hill is, where he's trapped. He's up there. His brothers die up there with him. They kill the horses and they hide behind the horses up here on Last Stand Hill when they're surrounded and outnumbered, and they die. Everybody. So what happened was, after the battle, all the bodies were laying here stripped and mutilated by the Indians. And then Terry's command came along 2 days later and just kind of threw a few shovels of dirt over the bodies they found here. And then later, someone came along and just took the remains and threw them in like a mass grave behind here, and that's where the monument is, another mass grave. So these little markers just kind of approximate where they actually fell.
The Indian Memorial, it looks like it's under construction.